Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of history's biggest what-ifs. Imagine a world where the thundering hooves of Mongol horsemen didn't stop at the edge of Europe, but galloped all the way to the Atlantic. It almost happened. This is the story of how the Mongol Empire came terrifyingly close to conquering Europe. Our story begins in the early 13th century. Genghis Khan had forged the nomadic tribes of the steppes into the most formidable military machine the world had ever seen. After his death, his sons and grandsons continued his vision of a world empire. The western frontier, Europe, was next on the list. The man tasked with this monumental invasion was Batu Khan, Genghis's grandson, guided by the legendary general Subutai. In 1236, the Golden Horde, a massive Mongol army, poured into the lands of the Rus. One by one, the Kayafan Rus principalities, like Ryazan and Vladimir, fell. These weren't just battles. They were campaigns of utter annihilation. Cities that resisted were razed to the ground, their populations put to the sword. The climax came in 1240 with the sack of Kiev, the glorious mother of Rus cities. Its golden domes were smashed. Its streets ran red, and the heart of Eastern Slavic civilization was left in ashes. The Rus were shattered, and for the next 240 years, they would live under the Tatar yoke. But for the Mongols, this was just the beginning. The gates to Europe were now wide open. News of the devastation in the East trickled into Central Europe, but it was dismissed as exaggerated tales from the wild frontier. European leaders were busy with their own squabbles. The Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II was in a bitter power struggle with the Pope. The kings of Poland and Hungary were rivals. They were completely unprepared for the storm that was about to break. In the spring of 1241, the Mongol invasion of Europe proper began, and it was a masterclass in military strategy. Subutai, the brilliant general, divided his forces into multiple columns to strike simultaneously, preventing any single European power from helping another. It was a classic pincer movement on a continental scale. One Mongol army group smashed into Poland. On April 9, 1241, at the Battle of Legnica, a coalition of Polish, German, and Teutonic knights, led by Duke Henry the Pious of Silesia, faced the invaders. The European knights, clad in heavy armor, were confident, but they were outmaneuvered and decimated. The Mongols used their classic tactics: feigned retreats, clouds of arrows, and flanking maneuvers. The chivalric army was annihilated, and Duke Henry's head was paraded on a spear. The path into Germany was now clear. But the main Mongol force, led by Batu Khan and Subutai themselves, had a bigger target: the Kingdom of Hungary. King Bela IV of Hungary was one of the few rulers who took the threat seriously. He gathered a massive army and marched to meet the Mongols at the Sago River. On the night of April 10, 1241, the day after the victory at Legnica, the Battle of Mohi began. What followed was one of the greatest military disasters in European history. The Mongols, using smoke screens and a surprise pontoon bridge, completely encircled the massive Hungarian camp. For the Hungarian army, it was a slaughterhouse. King Bela IV barely escaped with his life. In the aftermath, the Mongols systematically devastated Hungary. They hunted the king across his own realm and spent the next year turning the fertile plains into a wasteland. It's estimated that up to a quarter of Hungary's population perished. By the winter of 1241, the Mongols stood on the banks of the Danube. Their scouts were raiding into Austria, reaching the outskirts of Vienna. They crossed the frozen river and were chasing the Hungarian king down the Dalmatian coast, near modern-day Croatia. The heart of Europe, Germany, Italy, France, was completely exposed and terrified. The Pope called for a crusade, but no one could muster an army capable of stopping the horde. It seemed that nothing could prevent the complete subjugation of the continent. Europe held its breath, awaiting the final fatal blow. And then they just left. In December of 1241, a messenger arrived from the Mongol capital of Karakorum, thousands of miles away. The great Khan, Gedai, son of Genghis, was dead. Mongol tradition dictated that all royal princes had to return to the capital to elect a new great Khan. Beta Khan, as a potential candidate and a senior prince, had to go back. He packed up his entire army and began the long march east. Historians debate this decision to this day. Was it solely due to Gedai's death? Or were there other factors? The Mongol supply lines were stretched thin. The European landscape, with its forests and fortified castles, was less suited to their cavalry tactics than the open steppes. Perhaps they had already achieved their primary objective, to secure their western flank and neutralize any potential threat from Europe. We may never know for sure. What we do know is that Europe was saved by the bell. The death of a single man in far-off Mongolia changed the course of history. Beta Khan never returned to finish the job. He established his own Khanate, the Golden Horde, which would rule over Russia for centuries. But the grand invasion of Western Europe was over. So, what if Gedai hadn't died? What if the Mongols had stayed for another year or two? It's chilling to think about. Could a divided Europe have stopped them? Probably not. We might be looking at a world where Paris, Rome, and London shared the fate of Kyiv and Budapest. The Renaissance, the Age of Discovery, the entire trajectory of Western civilization could have been completely different. This incredible story is a powerful reminder of how fragile history is, how a single event on the other side of the world can have world-altering consequences. Europe got lucky. Incredibly lucky. The thundering hooves receded, the threat vanished, and the continent was given a second chance. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. What do you think would have happened if the Mongols had stayed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Until next time, stay curious.